Greetings, metalheads, and welcome to the fifth part of the Devon Graves interview from Psychotic Waltz. Now, I hope you've enjoyed watching all the other episodes, interviews I've done with Devon. Devon's one of my favourite singers, and Psychotic Waltz are one of my favourite progressive metal bands. So, Devon, once again, thank you for doing the interview. It was such a pleasure speaking to you and finding out the whole history of Psychotic Waltz and your projects you've done, such as Shadow Theory and Dead Soul Tribe. So, metalheads, thanks for watching all these 5 parts. Much appreciate it. Please share on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and any social media you can, especially Facebook groups. So thanks for watching, be safe. There's some fantastic interviews coming your way with other bands I'm setting up right now, so thanks for sharing, be safe, stay metal, and I'll speak to you all soon. Thanks for watching. Well, because I mean, touring with Rage, that's kind of a strange support act, isn't it? You supporting Rage. They're more like a speed metal thrash band, and you guys are like you say, like Tool. Did you go down well with the audience?
Sometimes.
Right.
Yeah, Dead Soul Tribe was growing and growing. We got a lot more girls at our shows, though. I'll tell you that. We would sell out of girly shirts. Psychotic Waltz, we still got girly shirts back here. It's not the same thing. And that was satisfying, to have pretty girls at the show is nice. And at first, it was a disaster because, like I said, some of the players in the band weren't really solid enough. But I just had belief in this image of the band that I'd have that this will work, and we persevered, But we were going up and up. We started playing the first opening act in Prague Power, and by our last gig, we were the headliner. Over a career, we went up and up and up and up and up.
Was the Prague Power in Holland, or was it in America?
It was in Copenhagen.
Right, okay.
And in all fairness, I think that we co-headlined. I think that it was Pain of Salvation. We're the real headliners, but when they call you the co-headliners, when they want you to play the gig, but they want someone else to headline, they want to say, well, you're headlining, you're co-headlining. It's like, I'm not co-headlining because there's a band after us. But I actually liked that. I actually liked that because we even took, as Psychotic Waltz, we deliberately took the co-headlining position because we like to hang out a little bit afterwards and like get our show done and then like have some time where there's still people there, still a band to see, and all the pressure's off of us. We kind of like that. Yeah, we broke up then because I remember, though, getting a little frustrated with the choice that I'd made because, I really loved the guys in that band. They were really good friends. The Dead Soul Tribe guys were really good friends. And I also think that they looked really cool on stage. They really had a good presence. They really handled that end of it just like as good as I hoped. But I couldn't help but wonder, like, as I saw us kind of going up, I was starting to wonder, what would it be like if I were jamming with guys that were better than me?
Yeah.
Like it used to be. Like, because I'm a decent guitar player. I'm not like a virtuoso or anything, but I'm decent. I'm like a good blues guitar player. I would have probably, if I were out in the 70s, I might be a great guitar player. But by today's standards, ever since Eddie Van Halen came out, I'm just a decent guitar player. But I have like vision and feel. That's the one thing I have on my side, is that I have feel on guitar. And but I was always feeling like not the drummer. The drummer's always kicking ass, but the bass player and rhythm guitar player were always kind of just like barely getting by, and just with their animal magnetism, we're kind of making up for it. But if you just listen to it, it's probably not that tight. And I wondered, what would it be like if I wasn't the best guitar player in the band? What would it be like if everybody around me were better musicians than me? And I started to, this was when I had my home studio all going really good. Now it's raging. I mean, now my studio's like,
looks good.
Could beyond all my dreams. But even back then I had enough to where I started to wonder, God, what would it be like if I had Psychotic Waltz now? you know, because that was one of our big contentions. One of the things that was a really big division between, especially Dan and myself, especially between us, was that I really wanted to record at home. I really wanted to invest in this studio equipment, record ourselves, because I was tired of working with engineers that said, no, that's not possible. And when I know it's possible, you know?
Yeah.
That was kind of how it was. Like on Bleeding, I remember we were working with a guy and I wanted a certain telephone sound. And I'm like, you know, we can get that with EQ. And he's like, there's no way you can do that. I'm like, well, if you move aside, I'll do it. Right. and the bottom line is that every one of those early albums, I love the music, but I don't think they sound that great. I hear other albums that really sound better than those. And not that I'm capable of achieving that sound, but I always felt like if those engineers get out of my way and just let me figure it out, that I will get to the sound that I want. That's a lot harder than it seems like it would be. I understand a lot more about it now than I ever did, you know, in Dead Soul Tribe. I'd certainly love to recorded just about any record I've done, recorded it again with the gear I have now and with the knowledge I have now. But having the studio means that you can create at any time. And that's what the situation I wanted the band to be in, because the demos always got a better performance than the records in many, many cases. And we didn't really realize it. I didn't really realize it, because you do a demo, you're singing the song for the first time, or, you know, recording it for the first time. So you really put all this work into it until you get it the way you want it, right? And now you get it the way you want it. Maybe your voice cracks in just the right way and on a certain part, and you have all these little nuances that you're in love with. And now you have to go into the studio and try to duplicate that. And you get kind of confused, because what you're hearing back sonically sounds so much better that you're just like in the flow and rolling with it. Like, yeah, this is great. And it wasn't until I dug up an old demo. It might have been a demo from the second album, that it might have been from that time period. Found old cassette tape and I played it. And of course, you know, it sounded shitty audio wise, but my singing was way better. And I thought, fuck, man, if only I can capture the album on that first recording, you know, where I get it really right, and then I don't have to do it again. It's done. And that was my dream. That's what I really wanted. And Dan really wanted to go into studios and stuff, which of course I understand, especially back then when I don't think he was so sure that the quality would be there. And he was probably right at the time, but I was really wanting to do this even back then. And, but it caught up to where the technology now is good, and in fact better. And, you know, I'll even say, you know, there's so many people that talk about analog tape and how much better it is than digital. That's old language that's getting repeated without really being thought about, because when digital first came out, I think the reason why people think digital doesn't sound good is because digital was this affordable gear. We even had a couple of these things called ADATs, because a reel-to-reel tape machine costs almost as much as a house. You know, they cost, well, okay, 30 to 70 grand for one of these things, right? And I said before that the tape is like $300 for one reel of 15 minutes of tape, you know? So it's super expensive. And then these ADATs came out that were 8-track digital recorders made out of VCRs.
They were little cassettes, weren't they? Little cassettes.
Some of them, the ones we had, used the big VHS, super VHS cassettes, and you have 8 tracks on there. And you can stack ADAT upon ADAT, stacking 8, 16, 24, 32 tracks, however many you want. And also there was no noise. So it was like, wow, when digital came out, all the engineers went, hallelujah, finally there's no noise. Because that's what people don't realize is with the analog tape, yeah, there is a warmth that happens. And yeah, it does make some signals sound better, but some signals it makes sound worse. And the noise reduction always messes with the low end. So whatever you think your bass tone is, when there's noise reduction put in, otherwise you got hissing, then the bass tone all of a sudden gets, all the high frequencies are gone from the bass tone and it's too muddy sounding, and the drums can be boomy or you know, the best way to explain it is like you're aiming at a moving target and you're working with engineers that are experienced, and like you want a certain guitar tone and you get that tone on your amp, and then they fuck with it and make it sound wrong. And they say, you have to do this so that it sounds right on the tape, you know? And the thing is, it actually doesn't sound exactly right there, but it sounds different. And they know what the tape's going to do. So they try to compensate for it going in. And so you don't really know what you're getting, and you can't really predict it. And then, but say you do get an awesome recording and you listen to the mix and it's killer. Well, that mix is going to get put down to another tape, which is going to add noise and add distortion. And then that's going to be your main master. And then that's going to go to a plant and get put onto several other tapes. So now you're 3 generations down. And those tapes are going to be used for reproduction. So then those are going to be recorded onto other tapes or pressed into vinyl or put onto other tapes that go to radio. So by the time you get to the finished product, you're about 4 or 5 generations down from what you were listening to in the studio. And the degradation is not a good thing. And the cool thing about digital is whatever you have, that's what you're going to get out the other side too. That's what the master is going to sound like. That's what the CD is going to sound like, or the MP3 or whatever. The only challenge is that I think people were blaming digital, the sound of digital, on the equally affordable gear that came out along with the ADATs, like these Mackie mixing consoles, which I have one of. Brian bought one back when they came out. The cool thing about that console was that for the first time, for just a couple of $1,000s, maybe $3,000 or $4,000, instead of 30 or 40, you can get a multi-channel mixer that isn't going to add all this horrible noise. Those Mackies were dead silent, and they didn't color the sound. They were very, like, what you put in is what you're going to get out. So it was kind of like a miracle that something worked that well. But what we now that we had this perfectly clean mixer and this perfectly clean digital medium, what we were now missing was the coloration, not necessarily from the tape, but from like the really good mixing consoles, that like a Neve console, or really good outboard mic preamps and compressors and really good microphones and all this hardware that's also involved. So when somebody's putting a studio together with ADATs, chances are they got a Mackie and maybe some Audio-Technica mic, which all of them work really well, but none of them are going to like wow you like with some magic that this classic gear can do. So now digital has gotten even better, way better, and now you just invest in the right microphones and the right outboard gear, and you have really the best of both worlds. And in my opinion, the God-Shaped Void is by far the best sounding record we have, and all those old records are all done on full analog, and this one's digital. In fact, not only digital, but recorded at home. You know, we recorded everything at home except for the drums and the bass.
Wow. So I'm going to talk briefly about the next project you did, The Shadow Theory. That was very sort of like King Diamond, really dark. You only did the one album.
Diamond is funny because it was like a horror story. So yeah, that definitely had some shades of King Diamond in there. And I talked about having the name of the band fitting the music. So this band was truly like much more progressive, and this was the band I was talking about. What would it be like to have these players that are better than me? Oh
Yeah.
man, what a lineup I had on that
No,
record.
you had the drummer from the Threshold, didn't you? He wasn't on the album.
Huh?
The drummer from Threshold was on the album.
Yeah. Yeah, Johan, man, Johan James, that guy's amazing, and everybody in that band was amazing. Johan can also sing really well, and I was looking forward to touring and working with a band where I had Chris on bass, who was a really good singer, and Johan James, who's a phenomenal singer, and had Arnie on guitar, who was way better guitar player than me. And that I would probably just sing, go back to doing that. And then the shadow theory was once again describing the music in the best way I can, where there's always the dark, something dark, which is the shadow. And then you have the word theory, which kind of alludes to music theory, and so it fit for me.
Did you get the cover from King Diamond, like them album, sort of the inspiration from that?
It's similar, huh?
Yeah.
That's another Travis Smith. I mean, ever since Bleeding, everything I've ever done has had a Travis Smith album cover. Every Dead Soul Tribe album, every Psychotic Waltz album since, the Shadow Theory.
I mean, it's a great album. I don't understand why you didn't do any more albums with that, for that Shadow Theory.
Well, I know why. Because that was really going to be my band. One thing I wanted that I never really had was I wanted a band where there were more than one singer. Like the Beatles, the Eagles, like Fleetwood Mac, for example, like where there's different singers, different songs. And I just thought that's really cool. Or at least singing harmony, at least where I can sing and have real live vocal harmonies with good singers. I really wanted that. But there's two things. One of them was that while we were making that record, that's when Ward contacted me and told me that he was jamming with Norm and Brian and Steve at the time, and asked if I wanted to be involved. And I said, I do. But one, I'm working on an album right now that I don't want to derail this record. I think it's going to be great. And two, Dan has to come back too, because if we're going to do this, I really want, especially if Ward is in it, that's like, we got an original lineup. That's the way to do it. And if Dan comes back, I'll come back, but keep it down. Right. And when, I guess I was working with Inside Out Records, the same label we're on now, and Thomas was always asking me about Psychotic Waltz from the very beginning of Dead Soul Tribe. I think he was really interested in Psychotic Waltz the whole time, and was always asking me what's up with it. And I think there was a rumor going around somehow that we were talking, and he asked me about it. And this was at the record label at Century Media when I was coming out there to do a little performance and to do a lot of press about the upcoming Shadow Theory album. And Thomas asked me about Psychotic Waltz, and I said, yeah, we're talking, and I want to do it. And but I said, but I don't want to say anything because I don't want to tank this record, And he said, I think you should. I think it could only help, that I think it'll, people will take it as good news, and it will help. So on this interview, interview after interview, I let the cat out of the bag. And after you do interviews, you make the record, you mix the record, you master the record, and then you do the press. You get the reviews of the record, and then you do the interviews. And then after the interviews, you check your email inbox for all the tour offers that are coming, right?
Yeah.
And so I did these interviews and mentioning the impending Psychotic Waltz reunion. And Dan wasn't really quite on board yet. He was on the fence, he didn't say no, but he didn't say yes. And there was like a lot of offers. Like we got offered to headline, it was Rock Hard, and they offered us more. Like for us, this was a lot of money, like a lot more than we ever made before. I mean, we were making $10,000 for a whole tour, and that would probably 20 shows, and not counting our merchandise, but just what we would get paid for the concerts would average out to about $500 a night. And we got offered substantially more than that just for one concert. And even Dan, and I was like, they're offering us this much just to get together and play one concert. And Dan was saying, look, man, I haven't played guitar in all these years. I don't know if I even remember these songs. And I can't imagine how much work this is going to be to get together and relearn all this stuff, get the band tight, and make it sound as good as it used to sound for one concert. He said, I just don't see that happening. And so anyways, I did the interviews, and okay, now it's time to check the email. There was one festival, one or two. One was like maybe even headlining spot at some festival in England, which I've never played before, for the Shadow Theory. And it was then that it kind of dawned on me, how are we gonna rehearse for this? Like the drummer's in England, and he's playing with Threshold at that same festival the night before. I think they were headlining the night before. So he isn't going to be able to come and spend a week with me. And how we would really need time to work out these harmonies. Who's going to sing what? I start to think, wow, the guitar player lives in Germany. The bass player lives in Holland. The drummer lives in England, and I'm in Austria. And the keyboardist doesn't want to play. He doesn't want to play live. He was scared to death of the idea of playing live, is what it seemed to me. And I started to think, God, man, this seems like a lot of work. Psychotic Waltz sounds a lot easier to me. Like, I don't even got to go to band practice. I just got to, they can practice together. I'll practice at home and we'll meet. And that's exactly what we did. But there was only these one or two offers for Shadow Theory. The rest of the offers were all for Psychotic Waltz.
Wow.
And it was like, one of them in particular was a really good offer, and it was the offer for Power of Metal with Symphony X and Nevermore, like we talked about.
Yeah. And
they offered us, it wasn't anywhere near the money we were getting offered for Rock Hard. Not I mean, for one show. If we would have gotten that much for every show, it would have been great. But it was substantial. It was more than we've ever made on a tour together. It was a tour that was in place. There's going to be an audience. We're going to have our tour buses, and we can go see. We can go try. It was a why not sort of thing. And that was the sort of thing, okay, it's like 21 shows. I think that's what it was, 21 shows.
It's just
and that was like, okay, so I could see all the work for 21 shows, and then we got to do Rock Hard as well, and a few others. And we had a pretty good run, and I told you that it was pretty encouraging. Like, wow, maybe it wasn't our time back then. Maybe our time is now, And,
it's just a shame you never played England on that tour.
Oh, I know. This is, for me, it's I really want to play there because almost every single one of my heroes is from England. Nearly every single one. And the fact that I've never even played on British soil is
it's kind of weird because like I've seen you guys 7 times, and like even when you guys broke up, I'd be interviewing people like Judas Priest, and I'd say to Judas Priest, check out Psychotic Waltz. I'd always plug you guys, even though you weren't together anymore. And it's just like, well, why don't you play England? Why is nobody promoting you over here? If I had the money, Devin, I'd put you on. I would. It just fucking pisses me off that nobody wants to support you over here. So I have to fly to Germany to see you, or Holland.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd like it to be different too, but I'd also like to be big in America, but that's just not the case, you know. I don't think that it ever would be, you know. Maybe, you know, but sometimes there are composers that never saw any success, and like 70 years after their death, then they became like these textbook composers, you know, known and renowned, and they never saw that in their life. And you know, I don't know if that's going to happen to us, if people will look back and notice, wow, where were these guys all this time, or if we're just not good enough, you know.
Oh, you are. You are good enough. It's just,
well,
it's just,
you know, it's weird because like I look at the, you know, now that we've got these videos on YouTube, and the labels put out these lyric videos and a couple video videos, and there's a lot of really positive, I mean, mostly almost all positive remarks, but the only negative ones are usually about the singing, like, oh, don't really like the singer, but it's great music. And you read enough of that, you start to think, oh, maybe it is me, you know.
nah, definitely not. It's just sad journalists that don't appreciate your music like I do. So
Yeah, it's a matter of, you know, taste and what people like, and I can't, you know, I tried in the like I said, in the Mosquito album, and maybe a little bit on Bleeding, but I may have found my way a little better on Bleeding, but I tried guessing what people want, and that is never how, that's never how a musician should work. You can only write this stuff for yourself, and if, because you have to love it first. You have to love it to believe in it. And if you love it, then you can at least think, well, it's lovable, you know, and that maybe if I love it, maybe other people will love it too. And very, very often that's the case. But the metal audience somehow, they're in almost every way, they're the best audience in the world, because music really, I mean, they really take their music to heart. I mean, they'll fight over music. They'll you know, they really will take it to the grave with them. But they also have different sensibilities, by and large, from mine. And a lot of them don't like to hear this really soft melodic singing. They want this brutality or screams or some kind of display of power.
Yeah.
And that's what they like. And that's why they like my first album. If those who could take the sound of my voice like my first album, because I was powering it out. But, you know, Robert Plant doesn't power it out all the time. You know, he sings softly, and then he sings loud, he sings high, he sings low. But for some reason, I don't have the same kind of acceptance for trying to sing in that same school, you know?
Yeah.
Now people want, I don't know what they want when they say, I don't like the singer, I'm not too into singing. I don't know what it is they're missing. I even seen a reaction video of somebody listening to the song Feed, and there was like a lot of really good reactions, and even the guy reacting liked my voice decently, but I see the remarks like, yeah, the voice doesn't quite fit. And I'm thinking the voice fits exactly perfect. It's exactly what I wanted, you know? This is the first records I made where I finally think, I got my voice the way I want it. But these people saying, well, the voice doesn't fit, or I'm not into the singer. And I have to respect that, you know, I have to respect it and go, well, I don't know what to do that will please you, but I have like some ideas. If we get to make another Psychotic Waltz record, I would like to go be more melodic and explore the range a little more. Get a little, not back to what I was doing, but get to something that's closer to that, because I'm going for something in my singing sometimes that isn't necessarily good singing. Like if I were singing like, Something holding you won't let go. There's nothing great about that singing, right? There's nothing great about that. But that's what I wanted. I wanted that sound. And I think since I worked with Eric Clayton, I don't know if do you know Eric?
Yeah, I used to be in Saving Machine.
Yeah. Well, I produced his solo album just after our album came out, the God Shaped Void. I produced Eric's album, and Eric, he's like this baritone, but he sings like his melodies soar, and he's got such passion and such great conviction that it inspired me to kind of find that in myself again, you know, and kind of like sing a little more instead of trying to make rock or Sabbath or whatever it is I'm trying to do. Try to get back to singing again, and right. I've been really training. It's kind of like feeling all dressed up and nowhere to go, you know, because right now every day I'm training my voice. I got my range really back, and I got better control of it than I ever really had, and I'm experimenting with getting even closer and closer to the sounds I'm looking for. And I wanted to go out and do a tour where I just nail it, you know, and I built myself up to this. And then COVID comes along and just takes all the tours away. You know, we were really when this album came out, it was nothing but good news, you know, nothing but hitting the charts and great reviews. And it looks like, wow, we finally did it. And now we're going to go on tour, and now we can blow up, you know?
Yeah.
That was the plan, but the tour never happened. And it just kind of seems like it's just kind of, we're fading out into the distance now over these years.
It's kind of weird.
I'm even thinking that, you know, I don't know if we're ever even going to, I don't know if we'll ever tour again, to be honest, with all this COVID and war and all this shit going on.
It's kind of weird because
I'm not afraid of COVID. In fact, I think I had it a month ago. I'm sure I had it because my wife was sick in bed for 3 days with really high fever, and then I got sick also, but not that bad. But you know, this kind of cold symptoms, that like a severe cold, and we went and got those home tests.
Yeah, I've got one. Yeah,
I got 4 of those tests, and she took 2 and I took 2, and both of hers were positive and both of mine were negative. That makes no sense. Like how if it's supposed to be so contagious, and everybody in the house got sick, but it was not very long. Like some of my kids got it for 2 or 3 days. I think one of my little kids got it for a few hours, had a fever for a few hours, and then was fine. A little bit of coughing. Anyway, I think we've been through it, and I think I got this natural immunity and stuff. But what I don't want to go out to is the political landscape about this, you know, with all it was bad enough after 9/11 going to an airport, let alone now having to wear the mask and all this, and like going in, oh, you're coming in from here, oh, you got to hang out for 2 weeks so you can't leave. And that stuff changes every day, you know, so you never know if you're going to arrive into some country, then all of a sudden be stranded for 2 weeks. And it's just too weird and sketchy. And none of us really want to go out into that. We all really want to play, but we're kind of like want to wait this out and let this blow over if it ever blows over. And my thought was like, okay, look, we kind of missed the peak of the wave. You know, the album did really great, but now it's been 2 years. So why don't we start making a new record and make one even better? And then hopefully, if it takes us another 8 years, hopefully all this shit's over. But hopefully we can do it substantially faster than that. And then maybe meet the end of COVID and hopefully the end of World War III or whatever this is we're entering in, or whoever's entering. And then kind of come out with a new album and a new opportunity to tour, and kind of, that's the most sense I could make out of the situation.
Right. So I'm going to talk, before we finish, we're going to talk about the God-Shaped Void. Why did you call the album that? It's a really unusual title.
We were kicking around album titles a lot. The first album title we thought of is, well, I thought of it because there's 5 of us, and the CD is a circle, the record is a circle, and I thought, why don't we call it A Circle of Fifths? And which means, like, that's a musical term. It's a music theory chart, the circle of fifths. And I thought that if we call it this, it's kind of like there's 5 of us, you know, that we're all like equal parts of this. And it, you know, that's just how I think it. And everybody liked that title. But then we started kicking out some other ones. You know, I had this idea of like, city made of mirrors or something like that. It actually came from a Russian book. My wife is Russian, and she told me about this, and I said this. I can't remember what the exact title was. It sounded really cool though, and like a house made of mirrors or something like that. I don't remember, but I liked it. But Ward said, "Oh, isn't that from that Russian literature?" And I'm like, "Okay, so it's known. It won't be original." And I heard this quote somewhere along the line that said, like, that there's a God-shaped hole in the heart of man. And it's like, that's the part where, like, God is missing from, you know? Like, I don't know if whoever wrote that term was saying that we were lacking God, or that God is a mystery. That's something that's missing from us, an answer that we don't have. And I thought about that, but I thought, well, I like that, but I don't like the word hole. The God-shaped hole doesn't sound very good to me. And so the God-shaped void. And I sent that title out. I said, what do you think, man? And Norm immediately wrote back, "That's it." And so that's it.
It's a really, really weird cover as well. It's like out in space with a spacecraft. Who came up with the idea for that? So no, Travis did the artwork again. So who came up with the idea for the cover?
Well, it's always the same when I work with Travis. He always wants to read the lyrics, and he goes off the album titles and just whatever image comes to his mind. Based on that information. And in that album cover, I really love that album cover. I really love the nods to Mike Clift that are on there. There's some tributes to Mike Clift. You can see on the back of the cover, there's the tree with a swing, and the jester is sitting on the swing, kind of looking down. But it looks kind of like not cartoon anymore. It looks almost like a real image. So there's a bicycle leaning against the tree, which represents the bicycle that Mike was riding when he got hit by that car. The swing represents, I believe that it represents Dan and Mike's childhood friendship, because they were friends as children. When 9 years old, they played together, you know. So, and then there's some little artworks of Mike that are kind of hidden, that we know Mike did, but Travis interpreted. And so it's very touching and moving for me, and because of that. It's very profound.
And also the reunion of the band, that would have helped as well with the cover.
Yeah.
So what songs from that album do you like, and why?
I like that whole record. I'm just proud of that record front to back. It's the first record I've ever did that I feel that way about. Like, every song I'm like all in, you know.
I remember seeing you in Holland about 6 or 7 years ago, and you played for the very first time at Sparta's Lullaby, and you said, "Nobody filmed. This is the first time ever. Put your cameras away and just fucking listen."
I said it nicer than that.
Yeah, I know you did, but you were like, it's like, put your cameras away, please. This is the first song. It's not going on YouTube.
What I said was that this is for you guys. This is for the people that showed up here. It's not people that didn't come. this isn't for them, man. Keep it for yourself. And maybe let's just share this moment in real time without a screen between us. Like, be here, be in the moment. And also that I didn't want this leaked on YouTube, you know?
Yeah, it was.
And somebody was really clever. They shot it. And I even said, I see you. And if I see this on YouTube, I'll know who did it, you know?
I remember, because it was at the Amsterfoot show, wasn't it? Amsterfoot. In Holland.
I couldn't say that.
Yeah, it was in Amsterfoot, yeah.
But what that person did is they posted it, and they posted that stage banner that I said. And when I said that, everybody applauded. So I guess I said it right. I wasn't like, put your fucking cameras away. You know, that shows me some respect. There's an artiste on stage, you know. So that they posted it, and then they had the count off and the first chord, and then it stops. So they actually respected our wish, but still put it on. Like, it was kind of, I thought that was all right.
So how long did it take to record this album then?
I'm sorry?
How long did it take to record the album?
To record it? It took like 8 years to write it. I used to feel really bad about that, but then I learned that Boston took 8 years to write their first album. So it wasn't just like 8 years of writing, you know. There was a lot of time in between, like times where we would stop writing so they would rehearse so we could tour. We toured 3 times, I think, in that interim, played festivals in there. So all the writing stops, and then they're just getting in the jam room just to play the songs. And then also what I had going on here in the studio, there was a lot of walls being taken out, I had just a lot of construction work I was doing and producing other records and stuff. So it was hard for us to spend like all this time writing like it used to be when we were living together and only had one band and no girlfriends and no houses and no children, and we were just writing music. So we were like thinking about that 24/7, and even then it took us 2 years to make a record. So I even think the math kind of checks out, because we used to practice 4 days a week, T's and S's, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday. We used to practice.
Wow.
And it would take us 2 years to make a record under that kind of a schedule. So if you say, okay, they're practicing once a week now on Sundays, so then that you can extrapolate that to where that it's going to take 4 times as long to get anywhere if we're only working 1/4 of the time, and it took 8 years to finish this record. And but that was kind of on all of us. It took I took a long time to get my shit done. On some songs, man, I wrote, like, I remember on Back to Black, for example.
Great song.
Oh, thank you. I didn't know it was that title was already a title from Amy Winehouse. I didn't realize. I knew of the song. I didn't know it was called that. I thought it was kind of a cool nod to AC/DC, but even though the song is about something specific, but I wrote that song, I don't know, 3 or 4 times, where I make a melody, love the melody, write the words, sing the whole thing, layer the vocals, be really happy with it, come in the next day, listen to it, I don't like it, you know?
Wow.
And it's like, I got to start over. And so there were a couple of songs where I did this process, and I never used to do that. I used to just take the first, whatever I write, that's it. But this time I think that I'm more careful and more sensitive about what I'm saying is good enough. And I always want to feel these goosebumps, you know? I always want to be like, oh, this is awesome. I want to feel that way every moment possible. And if there's this moment where I'm singing and I don't feel that way, then that part needs to be rewritten, and that's kind of the process I went through. And yeah. So it took a long time to just write the material, but recording it took, like any album, it took about a month,
Yeah.
But it's kind of hard to say, because like a lot of the vocals I had done along those 8 years, a lot of that just got kept. I didn't re-record all of my vocals. Once I wrote the song, like I said, that was the performance. I was done with it. Only when I was doing this rough mix, then I kind of like would either change my mind, rewrite something, or want to re-sing something, or reinforce something, add a new part. So after they had recorded their the drums with Ulrich Wilde, Dan and Brian did all their guitar work at home during the writing process, but they did it by plugging in direct. So on the recording, it was just a direct, clean sound. Yeah, they plugged in direct and used plugins. They also recorded their amps, but in my opinion, when I was like, because I was doing all the mixing for the rough versions of the demos, and in my opinion, the plugins actually bite my tongue. The plugins sounded better than the amps. That, at least the recordings they got of the amps. So when it came time to, okay, now we're going to go in and re-record this, we just recorded over the existing demos. So we just took the same recordings we had been working on and just re-recorded the drums and the bass, and initially just the drums and bass. And when it came to guitars, Ulrich just took those direct guitar sounds and ran them through Dan's amp, Brian's amp, and another amp. And so just fed it through an amp and then recorded it. That's called reamping. And so the performance was preserved from the original demo. So it still qualifies as kind of like a home recording, because all the efforts they did at home are the performances you hear. They're just reamped in the studio, and then Ulrich got a really, really killer guitar tone. And then those tapes, those files came back to me, and then I just put all my vocals back there, and for them to work with. I consolidated all my vocals down to like 1 or 2 tracks so that they wouldn't have all these faders to deal with. They just hear the vocals. But then I got it back, and I took those vocals out and put all the multi-track vocals back in place. And then here's the full recording. And now I can really decide, am I finished? Am I not finished? And then every song would have me, okay, I'll redo this, I'll redo that, I'll redo the whole of it, and then I spent a couple weeks, finalizing the vocals. And then I did a rough mix, sent the files out to Jens Bogren to mix, and then we went on tour. So it was really, really tight. I probably destroyed my voice recording all the vocals and then going out on tour and destroying my voice even more. It was a pretty rough little tour. There was some awesomeness involved, but it was also like pretty humbling as well. Like that I really showed my limitations, let's say.
Was that the tour that I saw you with Ghost Ship Octavius? Was that the tour?
Yeah.
Right, okay then. So how do you see this album, the last album, as a progression from all the old Psychotic Waltz albums?
It benefits from the wisdom of older musicians that know how to do their craft a little bit better. At least, I think that Dan and Brian are kind of like as good as they ever were, if not better. Everybody's still as solid as they were, but I think that I was the one that had the opportunity to grow the most, because those guys were excellent from jump. I was the one, you could hear I'm a little hard on myself, but I also wasn't happy with a lot of my earlier work, and I've explained why. And I was able, with this wisdom and to write songs with the spaces in them, to write songs that put the high notes at the end, to write songs that, well, God, with the capabilities now, I could layer vocals like I never could back in the 24 track days. You know, I had maybe 1, 2 harmonies, maybe 3 at best, you know, 3 tracks, 4. I don't know if I ever even had 4 tracks to record all my vocals on. Maybe I did. But now I can like make just a wall of vocals. I can make a choir of vocals and melodies and counter melodies and parts that weave in and out. And that's where I have just this solitude and this time alone just to go through it. And it's a great, great advantage, because when you're working with other musicians, I'm sure that Freddie Mercury, I'm not putting myself where Freddie Mercury is, but I'm just saying that when he did Bohemian Rhapsody and the band is in the studio listening to him put this together, they're hearing it one voice at a time. And they're thinking, what the fuck is this? You know? And as he'd add more and more to it, like,
yeah, multi-layers.
Yeah, they probably like thinking this guy's lost his mind. And if I had to do that process in front of the guys, I could see them going, that doesn't sound so good. And it'd be like, well, wait, there's a whole shitload that goes here, but I just gotta, I gotta put it down. So when I can just do that in solitude and they never see me go through figuring it out, singing it wrong until I sing it right, and just getting the picture straight, what I'm hearing in my head, to get that to come out of the speakers. Once I got that, then I just send that to them, and then they're like, oh, this is done, Wow. So I got away with a lot that I might not have if we were all working in the same room.
So before we finished, do Psychotic Waltz have any new songs wrote?
No, I have a couple. One of them, I'm sure that Psychotic Waltz won't want to do, just because of the style. I think it's a beautiful song, but it's almost, it sounds like something that should have been in like 1960s, early 70s R&B kind of bluesy.
Really?
Beautiful song, but nothing for Psychotic Waltz. But I do have this other one I'm working on that I'm really looking forward to showing them. Anything that I write that they want, will do. And if I write it and I like it and they don't, then I'll just release it some other way. Maybe that's what my YouTube channel is going to be all about, or maybe there will be a new Dead Soul Tribe record. I'm not sure, but I'm going to write whatever I like and, give them first choice, and whatever they pass, then it's going to end up, somewhere.
Right then. So what projects do people need to know about that you're involved with before we finish? I'm still in lockdown, I don't have a lot going on except for my own ambitions. Like this YouTube channel is something I really want to do, but I want to find, like my way into that, like in a way that's going to be meaningful and have value to people. And I'm kind of thinking that maybe if I embrace the fact that mainly musicians like Psychotic Waltz, that most of my audience are other musicians, that maybe I can talk to them on that level, and I know personally I have this passion for studio. I love microphones. I love learning how to record. And it's a mystery, it's not an easy thing to do. It's not an easy thing to do well. And I'm learning more and more and more and getting better and better and better at it. And after doing it for, 20 years, 22 years, boy, oh boy, would I like to have some of the wisdom that I have now back when I was doing Dead Soul Tribe. I could have really saved myself a lot of time, a lot of money, and I could have gotten a better result, but there was nobody out there to teach this stuff. Now there are a couple of cool channels, but I was thinking maybe I can do that in a way to bring my perspective into it, and maybe talk about singing for singers, maybe talk about songwriting for songwriters, maybe talk about
strategies for bands to get together and how they should spend their money, how they should spend their efforts to get the most out of their, to get the best results they can get. With
I'll be definitely subscribing when you get it going, so don't worry about that. I'd like to thank you for doing this interview. It's, like I say, one of my favourite singers of all time. Much respect to you, Devon. Please keep going. Don't give up with your career. And I wish you all the best this year.
I won't give up. The only reason that I want to do the YouTube thing is because it looks like in the near future it's going to be my only way to contact with my audience, the only way I can make any contact. I can't go out and play. And so, it's kind of, and what I'm hoping is, like, if once it gets rolling, that maybe I'll find my stride. Maybe I'll find my niche, and I'll find what it is people want from me and would enjoy, and hopefully I'll stumble into something. But I'm going to go into it just with my objectives and some ideas, something I feel might at least have value to somebody, musicians, let's say.
Okay then, so I'd like to thank you for doing this interview. Do you have anything to say to the people watching this on YouTube?
Oh God, haven't I said enough? No, I appreciate it, man. I as you can see behind me, you can see I've even invested in this YouTube thing. I got nice lights, decent camera, I'm ready to roll with it. I just need now to come up with some content that people would want to see, and I probably gave most of it to you, so good luck with it. I hope it...
thank you very much for that, Devon. So thanks for the interview. Hope you have a nice evening. Be safe. Keep in touch. God bless you, mate. You're one of my favourite singers.
Man. You take care, okay?
You too. Cheers. Thank you.
All right.
Bye, Ed. Bye. Thank you.